All right. We're good? All right. How you guys doing? So Rick asked me to come in and, as it's getting towards the end of your year, to talk to you guys a little bit about finance. So I just decided to name this class Personal Finance 101, Basic Ideas on How to Prepare for Financial Freedom. Obviously, we all would like to have financial freedom. So let me tell you a little bit about me. Go ahead to the next slide. I am a JFA, which is a Jesus Appointed Financial Advisor, which basically has no credit at all. I attended college, but I didn't graduate, so there's nothing wrong with that. I ran a somewhat successful business for 29 years and then sold it in 2011 for $1.8 million. I'm married to Kelly McEvoy, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows here, which is the Anchor House registrar and the one that makes sure you guys pay your bills. I'm also the treasurer for KCF, Anchor House, and a bunch of other stuff that I didn't put on here. I also have a full-time job during the day, but that full-time job is 2 hours a day. Don't ask, I'll tell you more about that some other day. All right, next slide. So I wanted to throw in a few things to put in some scripture. This is a good scripture, Proverbs 3:9. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your harvest. So what is your first fruits? Anybody? Nope. So first fruits is always going to be what is the best. So if you're running an orchard, that would be the best apple, right? So it doesn't mean the first one that comes off the vine, because let's face it, if you've ever tried to grow anything, sometimes the first ones are not so good. And so it doesn't mean that. It means the first fruits, which means it's going to be the best. So that's why Isaac was to sacrifice his firstborn, which was basically what he was asked to by God to sacrifice that. Of course, he didn't have to. Next slide. So we're going to do a little quick overview. Basically, we're going to go through establishing credit, get a credit card, start a budget, bad investments, good investments, and then I'll have some time for questions. Okay? So before we go into the next slide, actually, I guess we can. Yeah, go into this one. It's kind of hilarious. Credit unions are really a good place to start, and I'm not really a cat lover, but I thought that was pretty cool. And then, of course, the Wizard of Oz, Tin Man, is looking for a heart, so he goes to the credit union. Credit unions, does everybody know what a credit union is? Anybody not know what a credit union is? Okay, so a credit union is like a bank, except that they don't have to run under the same guidelines of a bank. So therefore, they're a great place for young people to start off, and not a bad place for older people too. They don't have the same regulatories as a bank, and so they're a great place to borrow money from, and they usually give good interest rates on credit cards, or if you wanted to borrow, as you establish credit, it's a good place to borrow some money, which we're going to go through in a minute. So does anybody know what a credit score is? Okay, that's what we're going to try to establish. Do you guys even know if you have a credit score? Does anybody even know they have a credit score? You do. Okay, well, I know you do. So what is your credit score? 735. Now, does anybody know what the highest credit score is? Very, very good. It's close. The very best credit score you can get is 850, but 800 is considered excellent. So there's 5 levels of credit scores. I don't know why, but they start with 3 digits and they start at 300. So 300 is the actual worst credit score you can have. What's better, to have a 300 or no credit? Nope. It's better to have a credit score of 300. Because if you don't have any credit, nobody's going to loan to you. But if you have a 300 credit score, they're going to loan to you. They're just going to loan you at a really high rate. So you guys probably don't have credit. So we're going to ask you one more question. Debit cards. Everybody have a debit card? Do you think you're establishing credit with your debit card? No. So why do you have a debit card? Because you probably didn't know any better, and that's what your parents told you, or you just went out and did it on your own. Get rid of your debit cards, get a credit card. But we'll work on that. That'll be here in a minute. Best, so here's a poor credit score is 300 to 579. Fair, 580 to 699. Good is, or 669. Good is 670 to 739. Very good, 740 to 79.99. And 800, which you said is excellent, from 800 to 850. The average score for your guys' age group is 680. So that means people that do have credit in your age group. The average score for people in my age group is 745. So obviously, when you get older, you're more established and you get that credit better. All right, next slide.
Am I on the right side?
Oh,
Or should I?
that's perfect. Stay right there. Okay, so we just talked about credit unions. So if you can find a local, wherever you guys live, you can do it here, but you're going to be gone pretty soon. So go to your local credit union. Pretty simple. Look them up. You know, Google them, whatever you want to do. Find a credit union. Go in, open up an account. You can probably open it with $5. Doesn't mean a lot of money. And then see what it'll take for you to borrow some money. This is how you're going to establish your credit. You're going to start off, let's say you just borrow $200. And you make payments with interest and never miss a payment. How does that work? You just basically set up the account, borrow the money, put it into that account, have it automatically pay it every month, and you just establish credit. Now, they're going to charge you some interest rates. You're probably going to have to put in $205. And then if you pay that off every month, after a year, you've just established credit. Sounds easy, doesn't it? It's really not that hard. If you have any questions about that, you can always call me or check with your parents. It should be pretty simple. Don't miss the payment. That's the key to establishing credit scores. It's okay to pay minimum. In this situation, you wouldn't pay a minimum because you would have it. That's borrowing, paying it back. That's establishing credit. Once you have enough money to start a savings account, you can go online. Online savings accounts are paying over 4%. Go to the next slide. Here's one that I just pulled up. I think it's SoFi or Sophie or SoFi, whatever it is. I've heard of this place, but I've never used them. 4.6%, and look at that, no account fees. So there's no hidden fees. You'll hear about hidden fees all the time. These guys are saying, hey, you can put your money in there and they don't charge you anything. It's online. You can get to it anytime you want, access it, pay your bills through them. None of you guys probably even know what a checkbook is anymore, but they can pay things through checks, through their own thing. All right, next slide. Get a credit card. What does that look like? How do you get a credit card? Because right now you guys got debit cards, so your bank would probably go, oh, you don't have any credit, we're not going to give you a credit card. Once again, if you start with a credit union, they may go, oh, we'll give you a credit card, but we're only going to give you a $100 limit or something like that. So then you get that, you use whatever you can up to it. Maybe you don't even have to use $100, use $20. Use it to buy a coffee or whatever, and then pay it at the end of the month. That's establishing credit. Your debit card, not establishing credit. Your credit card is. And I know that, as you see down here, debit cards have the little MasterCard or Visa symbol on them. That just means nothing. All that means is that it's going through their network to give you anything, but it's still a debit card. You want a credit card. Okay? Pay off your balance each month if you can. Here's some little things you should know. How do you build credit? And there's a thing, and I'm going to throw some big words at you. Don't worry, you don't have to remember them. You don't have to write them down. Credit utilization rate. That's what all these companies are looking at. What that means is the amount of use compared to the amount of available credit. So if I have 5 credit cards, and each one has a maximum balance of $20,000, I would have how much credit? Okay, we need to go back to math. 5 credit cards, $20,000 each, $100,000. Thank you. $100,000, that's my available credit because each one has, I didn't say they have a balance of $20,000. They have the ability to have $20,000 worth of credit. So if you have $10 on that, then you would have almost $100,000 worth of available credit, which would boost your credit score up. So the next question is it good to have more than one credit card? Yes, but make sure you use them because if you don't use them, they can actually use that against you, which sounds crazy. So even if you put $10 and you pay it off every month on 3 different credit cards, and each one has a $1,000 limit, that's better than having one credit card and paying the $30 and having a $1,000 limit, because now you have $3,000 limit and you're spreading it out. So sometimes it's okay to spread it out. And my kids, my daughter's 30, my son's 25, and I did I assume most of you guys are 17, 18, 19? Most of you? Okay. I know you're a little bit older. We're not going to talk about age. Anyway, so when they were, I think my daughter's older, she's 30, so when she was like 18, I did what I taught, everything I'm teaching here, I did with my kids. They went and established credit. Now my son, who's 25, has this Apple credit card, which I don't even know what, it's like heavy, and he runs that, and he has like a $20,000 limit. And I don't know how he did it, but he just did it through establishing that credit, paying it off every month, and he's got this huge credit limit, and he's got a pretty high credit score. I think he's at 790 or something like that, at 25 years old. And really doesn't own a car, but all that stuff helps. Lives at home, so that helps. He doesn't have to pay that rent. Okay, so keep track. How do you keep track of credit cards? The easiest thing to do, hook up, go into auto pay in the credit card system so that it always pays the minimum. That way, you want to pay it all off, but don't ever miss a payment. So as long as you're paying the minimum, you're fine. So go into auto pay, set it to pay the minimum, and then you can always go in there and adjust it if you can pay it all off. Okay? Simple things. I would say 2 to 3 credit cards at your age would be fine, but use them all the time. Don't have to use them for a lot of stuff. If you still want to use a debit card, that's okay. Just keep in mind that that's not establishing any credit. So the more you use credit cards, the more credit you're going to establish. Okay? Next slide. Starting a budget. I don't know why cats just keep coming up. I saw the budget, I hated it, and then SpongeBob loves, budgeting, obviously. Next slide. Starting a budget. I think that's the right one. Yeah. So starting a budget, keep it simple with these 5 steps. So everybody should have a budget, but I don't want you guys to think budgets need to be overly complicated. Okay? Budget should be simple. List your net income. Net is after taxes, right? So I know that, Maria, you're working, so you don't have to tell, but let's just say you get $200 a week in her paycheck. That's what you would, so you'd put down, you go, okay, she's got 4 paychecks, she's got $800, that's her net income. Then she would go and list her expenses. So you'd probably do this monthly. And then she goes, oh, she spent $850. I don't know where she came up with the other 50, but she had to figure that out. Subtract your expenses from your income. If higher, tighten the belt. So in other words, if your expenses are higher than your income, we got issues. Track your transactions. Know where you're spending your money. And I can guarantee that, how many of you guys have a cell phone? Everybody, right? How many of you guys have a flip cell phone because they're coming back? Nobody? All right. Too bad. I really like those. So cell phones, most likely at your guys' age, are probably paid for by your parents. At some point, they're going to say, time for you to get your own cell plan. There's cheap cell plans at $50 a month, but most of these things are, by the time you put everything into it, you're probably paying $80 a month. That's something that everybody has to live with. Well, when I was young, we didn't have cell phones, so we learned to live without them. Could you live without a cell phone? Probably not. Could you live without as much as you got? Do you have to have the fanciest cell phone in the world? I don't even have an iPhone. I have a stupid Droid, and everybody laughs at me. That's okay, because it's paid for, and I don't mind. All the rest of my family has iPhones, but they pay more. I pay very little for this. All right. Make a new budget before the month begins. So you can do this monthly, or you can do it yearly, but I suggest you do it monthly. Don't worry if you fall behind. You guys are young. So if you end up spending more money than you make, and you have to make minimum payments, it's okay as long as you're doing it for good investments, which we're going to come to here in a minute. All right, next slide. This is a good from Luke 14:28. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? Obviously, we don't build something without thinking about how we're going to get there. But believe it or not, a lot of people buy cars and don't have any idea how they're ever going to be able to afford it. But they have to have it. So it's very scriptural to, I'm not picking on you. Everybody gets through this. I bought a brand new car when I was young. Fortunately, I was able to pay it off. So don't worry if you get behind, just come up with a plan on how to get out of that. So just keep going in debt doesn't make sense. If you have to buy another car to offset the car that you got or whatever, then, you know, okay, I got to get another car because I got to get another new one, even though I'm in debt from the first one, doesn't make sense. So get yourself paid off, then move forward. Bad investments. Oh, you guys are going to love this one. We're going to go through each one of these. And debit cards are bad, obviously. Cell phones are bad. Automobiles, expensive gifts or frills, high rent. Boyfriends and girlfriends are a bad investment. Just don't forget that. Jewelry, including watches. These are all bad investments. Okay, how many of you guys have one of these bad investments? I think we all do, right? I have one of those. You know, I've got a cell phone. I've got an automobile. I've got an expensive girlfriend. Oh, I mean wife. I don't even wear a watch anymore because it got too expensive. So I don't know what time it is, except my clock is telling me I still got a few minutes with you guys. Okay, we'll go through the next slide. Here's a good bad investment. Coffee at Starbucks or Eden, because I think all you guys drink coffee there. Figure $8 a day or $200 a month. If you saved half of that, so and I'm probably low on that number. I'm going to guess you guys probably spend more than $200 a month, but let's just go with that. If you took that and cut just your coffee consumption or whatever you're drinking over there, Frappuccino or whatever, what's the new thing these days? I don't even know. What's your favorite drink? Anybody? Mocha, all right. So whatever you're drinking, if you cut it in half, you would have $1,200 in the first year. Now, go to the next chart. This is savings instead of coffee. In 1 year, you'd have $1,220. This is based on the 4% on that, and that was a little bit low on that savings account. I said just an online account. Threw it in the online account, put that $100 in there. After a year, you'd have $1,224. After 5 years, you would have $6,641 just by cutting back half of your coffee consumption. Okay, next slide. More good investments. Credit cards if you pay them off. Loans that establish credit. Low-cost transportation. Think of e-bikes. Gifts that don't cost anything. Make a thank you note or something like that. Low rent. Living at your parents' home is not bad. Just don't take them for granted. If you have a rich boyfriend or girlfriend, that's a good thing. You have to have a little bit of humor. Nothing wrong with that. And a savings account. Roth IRA is a good investment. I'm not going to go into Roth IRAs because that's just that's next level. But go to the next slide. Savings accounts, CDs versus NVIDIA stock. Everybody know what NVIDIA is? NVIDIA is the stock that's just going off right now. This is all risk versus return. Go to the next slide. This is how much a $1,000 investment in NVIDIA would be worth. If you put $1,000 10 years ago, you would have $148,000 today. But that's a very high risk stock. If you just put it in last year, you'd have $3,000. If you put it in 2019, you'd have $17,000. My wife has a bunch of NVIDIA stock. I'm a little jealous. I have zero. Okay, next slide. These are 5-year investments. If you put $1,000 in GE, you would have $2,774. You put $1,000 in Walmart, you'd have $1,728. If you put $1,000 in a 5% CD, which is what they're paying online right now, you'd have around $1,250. But if you put $1,000 in Zoom, you would have $1,019. Some stocks actually can go to zero. Look at GameStop. It was hot in 2021, but if you invested $1,000 in 2021, it would be worth $150 today. I don't know if you guys remember the GameStop thing, but that was Robinhood and GameStop. So that shot the stock up, and if somebody bought it, which people were buying it at the high, and they tried to sell it today, they would lose a lot of money. So of course, everybody would go, gosh, you should just buy NVIDIA stock. But there's a lot of risk to that. There's more risk in, NVIDIA stock than, of course, in a CD. So just, I'm warning you, be careful. We had a kid last year that was really a stock trader before he came to Anchor House, and he lost a lot of money. Actually, he had some issues with gambling and other things because it gets to be quite addictive, right? When you start seeing the money you're making every day when you're a day trader, it can get really addictive. You're like, oh my God, look I just made $1,000 today. And then you want to put everything into that, and then you can get into other problems. So just be careful. All right, next slide. Tithing. The Bible uses a 10% as an example. It does not need to be money, it can be time or work. You should give until it hurts. I know that sounds really kind of mean, you should give until it hurts. But first off, God doesn't need your money, right? Did God create money? Probably not. I think we created money. Did God create talents? Of course. He created us to have talents. And he wants to use those talents. So when something that you covet, which would be money or the neighbor's car, or I don't know, maybe you like that dog that the other guy got and you just really want to have that dog. When you start coveting those things more than you want to spend time with God, that's when it becomes bad. So when the Bible says 10%, that's actually the bare minimum. And when you say, when it says money or time, it's not money or time, it's money and time. Money and time and work. So you should be giving 10%, your best 10% of your time to God. Do we all do that? No. I'm going to be honest. I don't always give the best 10%. Do we give the best 10% of our work? No. Sometimes I spend the best 10% of my work playing video games. I could get really good at that. Sometimes we don't spend the best of our money too. We spend it on things that we think are more important. So don't forget, if you're going to start saving money, don't forget to give something back to God. Because I'll tell you right now, and I'm proof of this, you cannot outgive God. It's just impossible. You can try, and that's probably going to be coming up here in one of the next slides. Let's go to the next slide, which is another great Bible verse. Every tenth of the land's produce, or every tenth of the lands produce grain from the soil or fruit from the trees belongs to the Lord. It is holy to the Lord, Leviticus. So what does that mean? That means that we're giving our best to God. And if we do that, he will bless you, guaranteed. And then you're going to ask the question is, why do some people get more financial blessings than others? And it's really simple. It's because that's what God trusts them with. He knows that if he gives you a little bit and you do well with it, then he knows you can do well with a lot. If he gives you a little bit and you don't do well with it, he's probably not going to trust you with a lot. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just means that you're probably not ready for the financial abilities to give them. So we'll take KCF for a great example. I've been the treasurer for, 15 years or something like that. When I came along, I think we were doing pretty good, but I'm pretty sure that God was just trying to figure out if we were going to give him the best. So my first job was to try to make sure I gave the best to God. And we went from a church that our budget was $300,000 a year, and now it's like $1.5 million is our budget every year. And we make budget. How do we do that? It's because I trusted God, said, God, this budget's yours. Help me to be able to create something with Rick and Nate and other people like Anchor House. You guys wouldn't be here today if we didn't trust God to take this campus, build that church, which the stories, I'm sure you've heard all the stories of how we built that church. We ran out of money. Rick just standing there going, I don't know how we're going to pay for the roof. Somebody pulls up in a car, hands him a check for $20,000 so we can finish the roof. So God is amazing. He can do crazy things when you think there's no hope. He just pops in there and goes, just keep believing in me and we can make it happen. So make sure, I'm spending a lot of time on tithing because it really binds in with credit and ability to be financially free. So, a couple of questions for you guys. Number one, are you financially free if you own a house, but it's worth $1 million, but you owe $800,000 on the house? You're making payments every day. So is that considered financially free? It actually kind of is. And here's why. Go ahead. Very good. So that was what I was looking for. Debt. You're not in debt unless you have more expenses than you have assets. Okay? So your financial freedom is basically that right there. If I had to put it in, I didn't put it on a slide or anything, but if I had to have you guys write something down, that would be it. If you got nothing else out of anything I've told you today, just remember that simple phrase is that in order to be out of debt, you need to have more assets than you have liability. So if you own a car, it's okay. If it's worth $20,000 and you only owe $10,000, that would be a good asset. If you own a phone, I don't think your phones are worth more than probably, what you owe on them. But, so probably not, a car is probably a little better asset than a phone. Because most of these phones, I don't think you guys could get anything for these phones. Well, you probably get $100 for the phones. Or they always say, you'll give you $200 to trade it in so you can get another $1,000 phone. That's not a good investment. But we do it. Those are okay. We're going to make those mistakes. But that's why they give you that. It's the bait and switch, right? Here's a phrase that I came up with. It's probably out there somewhere because nothing's original anymore with how many billions of people we have in the world. But it's always better to deposit more money or assets or everything else than you withdraw. Okay? I think it should be written at every bank. I think it should be make more deposits than withdrawals, and that's financial freedom. Simple. If you put more deposits in the bank and you withdraw less, you're going to have financial freedom. At your guys' age, it's really easy. When you get older and you got all this debt behind you, whether you go to college, you start getting, I don't think the president's always going to bail people out of college. And is he bailing everybody out? Probably not. So if you go to college, you're going to end up with debt. It's going to take a while to pay that off. If you have a car, you're going to end up in debt. It's going to take a while to pay that off. If you have a phone, once you're away from your parents, you're going to then eventually, you guys are all going to want to buy a house. I didn't put that down here because you guys are all pretty young, but that's going to be the best investment you'll probably make, unless you buy a really junk house. But if you buy a decent house, typically that, because you're going to have to pay rent anyway, that rent's going towards the payment of the house. Now you're putting money towards that asset. That is number one consumer thing to own is going to be a house. Could be a condo, could be an apartment, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying wherever you live is going to be something that at some point you want to own. Start small. The problem is people don't start small anymore. Everybody wants to go big. So they want to go, I got to have a 4-bedroom house. I'm telling you right now, I'm building 6 houses up in Kalaheo right now, 2- and 3-bedroom houses. They're small, but it's what the people need. Because right now we don't have affordable housing on this island. Anybody have an idea of what a typical house costs on this island? What would you get for, let's call it a 1,000 square foot house with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a garage? $3 million, no, that's a little high. We're talking simple house, nothing fancy, not here on the beach, just somewhere on the island. You're way low. On this island right now, the average house, Nate should know, he just bought one. Nate just bought a house, and what's that?
Is that the average? 900,000?
The average is right around 900,000 right now. It's crazy. Now I'm trying to build houses around 5 to 600,000, and it's tough. I mean, I'm putting all my sweat equity, zero profit, but I'm trying to do something through a bunch of people who are trying to build affordable housing for your generation, because it's just impossible. I've got friends wanting to move back to, North Carolina and stuff. They're, oh, it's affordable over there. I can buy, a house for 300,000. You can't. I don't know. Where are some of you guys from? Florida's not too bad. Anybody from the Midwest? Where are you from? Wisconsin. It's probably affordable in Wisconsin. You could, for $300,000, you could probably get a pretty good house in Wisconsin. Yeah. And so it used to be relative, because when you're living in a place like Wisconsin, maybe it's, the job over here that's paying $25 an hour might only be paying 15 there. That's gone out the window now. It's like you're getting paid, $25 an hour here. You're getting paid $22 an hour in Wisconsin, but you can buy a $300,000 house or a $900,000 house. They're exact same house. If the Wizard of Oz was here, they could just, pick that house up and float it over there, drop it in Wisconsin, and then you'd have a much more affordable house. So you're going to see it's really hard to live in places like Hawaii, and Florida is probably not much. California is not much different. I grew up in Seattle. It's crazy in Seattle right now. I'm trying to help my niece buy my mom's house that is really small, and they want $800,000 for that house. And I'm like, it's probably about the same as here. I can't believe that they'd want $800,000 for that house. So it's kind of crazy. All right, I think that is everything I've got. I believe the last one is questions, right? Yep. So I'm done early because I wanted to give you guys time to have any questions, because this is really not about me. It's about how you guys can get to be financially free. By the way, your scores are called FICO. I didn't even know what that meant. It's the Fair Isaac Corporation. I have no idea where that came from, but all your scores are based on FICO. You can get free credit scores once you guys establish credit. So I know Maria's got credit. Does anybody else have credit? Anybody else have a credit card? You got a credit card? Okay. So I would suggest that you find out there's places to go. Make sure that they're not, sometimes they ding, this is crazy. Sometimes they ding you for actually asking for your credit score. So make sure it's a free credit score site that doesn't ding you for that. But if you find that out, get your credit score. Don't keep checking it every month. That's silly. But get it once, and then just figure out, I gave you guys all sorts of ways to build that credit, right? Get your credit cards. Don't miss payments. Even if you have, an electric bill in your name. That's how I use that. My wife, that's how she established credit. I started putting all my bills in her name. And then I'm the one paying them, but it was under her name. So she has a higher credit score. I think she has an 830. She has like 830. I think I'm 810 or something like that. So she has a higher credit score than me, and she has less credit cards. But it's because she established that credit early, never missed a payment, and that's how you build it up. So remember, the key is to have more credit available than you're borrowing. As those get closer, obviously you probably can't borrow more than your credit is, but as you're getting closer, that's going to mess up your credit score. The guys with 300 credit scores probably haven't made payments, probably are in big trouble, probably have collection agencies after them, and those are the things you don't want. Okay, if somebody's coming after you to collect something, pay your debts off. It's that simple. And if you have to go out and borrow money to pay off a debt, get it figured out. The budget is simple, guys. It's not that hard. I know I was in debt when I was 25 years old, and all I did was put down what my credits were. Like, I had a credit card, I had a car payment. I think I had 3 credit cards and a car payment or something like that. So what I did is I started paying more than the monthly balance on the highest ones. And then you can, if you really want to get fun, which I don't recommend, is you can play the credit card shuffle. And I'll teach you the credit card shuffle really quickly. Credit card shuffle is not something I recommend, but if you have to, you can do it. What happens is credit cards, once you establish credit, will give you offers. You're going to get them in the mail. And they'll say, hey, For 12 months, you can transfer your balance and we won't charge you any interest. So you take your balance over here that's charging you 18% interest and you run it over here and now you're getting 0 interest. The key is, after 12 months, if you don't pay that off, then they're going to start charging you interest. And if you miss any payments, they can go back to day 1 and charge you interest from the first day. So that means somewhere before you get to the 12 months, you got to do the shuffle. You got to find another credit card, flip that balance to another credit card, close that one out, and move on. I did that for about 4 years and got out of debt. But you have to be really on top of it, right? You can't just sit back and just figure it's going to figure itself out. You have to stay on top of it, and you got to write it down. Online, most of these budget things that I was telling you about, there's online reports that are free. Set up a budget online, look at it once a month, and track your stuff. So I gave you guys the coffee explanation because I think that's the easiest one. All right, any other questions? Simple. You guys got it. You know what to do. All right, hopefully this was helpful to you guys. I got done way early because I didn't want to make this a tough one for you. And I only had a couple of days to put this together. Thanks, Rick. Okay, thank you guys.